Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside IUE Sports. I'm your host, Caleb Gillock. Today we're having our KIAC selection show, and joining me is our panel of experts, Kyle Wright, Ty Butler, and Franklin Christ. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well, man.
Well, let's go ahead and start with the Women's South Division. Kyle, we'll start with you, and go ahead and tell us your picks for the Women's South.
Okay, and fair warning to the audience, we were talking before we went on the air. Between the three of us, I think we can count the number of KIAC women's games we've seen on one hand. This is the first year for IU East Women, so we've all seen the tail end of some games of some men-women doubleheaders before, but very few of us, I think, you use the term experts on the KIAC women's front. But with that in mind, here goes. Women's South, again, the KIAC is in two divisions this year. In the way I see it, there's kind of an upper division and a not upper division within that division. Starting with the bottom, I'm going to say Brescia, I think, is going to finish in 6th, Midway in 5th, Cincinnati Christian in 4th. Those three were kind of together in the single division standings last year. I basically just kept the order that they were in last year, and I kind of foresee them finishing in the same order this year. I will say I'm interested Midway. I was looking at the coaches poll. They had a first place vote from someone, and you can't vote for your own team, so we know it wasn't Midway's coach. So someone on the women's side has some serious respect for Midway. So I'll be keep an eye on them as maybe the dark horse. Then in the middle, my pick for third place in that division would be Alice Lloyd. They were basically in a dogfight for first place in the whole conference last year, but they lost one of the top scorers in the nation. I did happen to see them a couple times last year. They weren't a one-woman show by any stretch, so I do think they have some decent pieces coming back, so I think that they'll be able to hold on for a top 3 finish. And then I think Asbury and IU Southeast, they'll be neck and neck for the top spot in that division. Asbury had a 20-win season, a real nice season last year, and a lot of pieces back, so I think that they'll be in there for the top spot. IU Southeast right behind them. So take it for what it's worth, but that's how I see the Women's South.
All right, how about you, Ty?
For me, on my picks, I didn't really know too much going into it. I've only seen probably 2 or 3 conference matches. So at the very bottom, I went and put Midway. I actually didn't even know that they had one number 1 vote, but we'll see how that goes. I had Brescia at the 5 spot, CCU next, Alice Lloyd right in the middle. And I knew IU Southeast was pretty decent, and as well as Asbury. I've seen both of them actually play in a couple of games last year. And Asbury played a conference game, and they were really tough. So Asbury, I think, finished better last year, if I'm not mistaken. So I just went and threw them back on top.
All right, how about you, Franklin?
First off, you're going to have to bear with me with my voice. I'm kind of struggling with a cold here. I've actually got Midway at the bottom. I think, or actually they did. They lost a 3-time all-conference player in Whitney Odom, so they'll be looking for a little bit more leadership there. Brescia, got a chance to see them play up at IWU. They actually was not very impressive to me, very sloppy, no real true post presence, so I got them at the 5 spot. Alice Lloyd, I've actually got them at 4. Right now, they're actually 7th in the nation right now in points per game, and they have a leading scorer at 19 points per game. That actually leads the conference. They're 6th right now in rebound margin, which I do not think will hold up. They've got one girl at 6 foot, a couple at 5'10", but other than that, not very many big bodies for Alice Lloyd down low. I got Cincinnati Christian at the 3. They're a lot. They have actually over half the team is a freshman-based squad. They actually are a slow-paced offense. Shoot 42% from the field, and that is actually one of the nation's leaders. It might be interesting to see how they play against some teams that run a faster pace offense and run the break. Got Southeast at the 2 and Asbury at the 1. Really impressed with a lot of the stats I saw with Asbury. 10th nationally in scoring points per game and 5th in rebound margin. Very deep team. I think they had over 25 girls on their roster, so a lot to choose from there. So yeah, Asbury at the 1 spot in the Women's South.
Now, you all seem to agree that Asbury will place first in the South Division. What's your main reason for them placing first in the South Division, Kyle?
For me, they had a 23-win season. Last year, basically, Asbury, Point Park, and Alice Lloyd were 1, 2, 3. It may have actually even been a tie for the first place in the one big single division. And of those, Point Park's in the other division. So between Asbury and Alice Lloyd, Asbury just has the most pieces back of those teams that are now in the South Division that contended for the title. So I think 23 wins last year, a lot of pieces back. just the sensible pick, in my opinion, for the top spot in that division.
Okay. How about you, Ty?
I have to agree with Kyle. They have so many pieces in that offensive defense. I saw them play a little bit last year, and we got to see one of their practices, and they're just a really well-coached team, and I think that will really contribute down the road.
All right, same for you, Franklin? Or
might as well make it a three-peat. They're just so deep. Like I said, got 25 girls. When you've got that many pieces that are able to come off the bench, it's tough to stay fresh. So definitely big for them.
All right, well, when we come back from the break, we'll talk about the Women's North Division. We'll be right back with more Inside IUE Sports.
This is where a busy mom can work toward a bachelor's degree from a top national university during softball practice. It's where a service member can continue his college studies from anywhere in the world, and where you'll benefit from one of the country's most effectively delivered online programs.
Woohoo!
So, if you've ever wondered if a college education is really worth it, this is where you'll see that it is. This is Indiana University East Online.
And welcome back to Inside IUE Sports. We just talked about the Women's South Division, and each of our guests all agreed that Asbury will place first in the Women's South Division. Let's talk about the North Division now. Kyle, 5 teams. What are your picks?
We need a new name for this. This needs to be like the Out of Thin Air Division or something like that, because 2 years ago this division couldn't have existed. The teams that are in it is Point Park, Rio Grande. Yes, it is pronounced Rio. Don't ask me why. IU East, Carlo, and IU Kokomo. None of those either were in the conference or had a women's basketball team as recently as 3 years ago. Point Park and Carlo just came in a couple years back. IU Kokomo and IU East first year women's basketball programs this year, and Rio Grande is in its first year in the conference for every sport. So yeah, we're calling it the Women North. It should be the Women Out of the Blue or something like that. As far as how I think they're going to finish, 5th, I think IU Kokomo. I hate to, their coach is actually a Valparaiso grad, which is where I went, so I hate to do anything negative to a fellow Valpo grad, but I think as far as the first year programs, they've had the, no fault of their own, but had the least time to kind of get ready for this year. So that'd be my pick for 5th place. Carlo is my pick for 4th place. I will say, I saw a Carlo Point Park game 2 years ago, women's game. Point Park won the league that year. Carlo didn't come close to winning the league, and that was a close game. I mean, there's a lot of conferences where there's just a big division between the number 1 team and the other teams. There wasn't a huge division there. I mean, Carlo did belong on the floor with them. Point Park won the game, but see, it looks like the women's, there's not maybe necessarily a big separation between the top and the bottom that maybe we've seen on the men's side in some past years. IU East, I'm going to say, will come in 3rd, and no disrespect there, IU East fans, because basically if we had any higher, that'd be saying we'd be expecting to make the national tournament this year, which would be quite an accomplishment for a first-year program. Point Park, which is my pick for the number 1 spot, they've represented the conference at the national tournament the last 2 years, in fact, ever since they've been in the conference. So they're my pick for number 1. Rio Grande is my pick for number 2. They've actually been playing at the NAIA Division I level for the last few years, which means they have more scholarships and other resources. Obviously, they're having to dial that down to be able to join the Division II, but just some of the, they're used to being able to have NAIA Division I resources. I think that'll be enough to keep them at the number 2 spot for this year.
Okay. How about you, Ty?
For me, I basically almost had the same results. I just had one flip-flop. I put Carlo at the bottom. Again, I'm not very sure about when it comes to women's basketball for this conference stuff, but I want a little more respect for the regional campus of IU, so I went ahead and put IU Kokomo above Carlo. IU East at 3, and again, no disrespect to any of the Red Wolves out there. We're a good team. We're going to make our runs. But I feel like with Rio Grande above us and Point Park at the top, they're going to have too much experience for us to be able to take one of those 2 spots up there.
All right, how about you, Franklin?
Yeah, I've along with Kyle, I've got IU Kokomo at the bottom. Like you said, first-year program, going to be very tough for them to really come in and make an impact in the conference. Got Carlo at 4. Don't know much about them, I'll be honest. Got IU East at the 3. Obviously, another first-year program as well. IU East does a lot of things, though, that I really like. Really like Mackenzie Campbell, very hard-nosed player. takes the lead as a freshman out there, and she's done wonders for them so far. We've got Rio Grande at the 2. They were actually 6th in a NAIA Division I conference last year, the Mid-South, which had 6 winning teams from that division, and also sent a handful of their teams to the national tournament. They've actually also got 7 girls that are listed at 6 foot or taller, so they're going to pose to be a little bit of a problem for some of these KIAC teams. Got Point Park also at the top. A lot of numbers popped for me. Got 4 girls in double figures, all returned from last year in the scoring department. 8th nationally in turnover margin, and as you guys know in girls basketball, turnovers are a huge stat. So very, very efficient squad there in Point Park.
Now, Kyle, for those that don't know, how does the postseason going to work for the...
All right, we'll see if I can get this on one take. There's 2 divisions. The KIAC, for both the men and the women, they have more than 10 teams now. If you have 10 teams, you get 2 automatic bids to the national tournament. So the way they've set it up for this year, the conference tournament champion, let me back up even further than that. The top 8 teams, which is the top 4 in each division, will go to the conference tournament. And then the conference tournament champion out of those 8 teams will get one of the automatic bids. If that team also won its division, then the other division champion will get the other national tournament bid. If the team that wins the conference tournament did not win the division, then the division champion of the 2 remaining that had the best conference record will get that second bid. Now repeat that 3 times fast.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, it sounds like it'll definitely make for interesting postseason. And like you mentioned earlier when we were talking, interesting spring too, and all that.
Yeah, the math just doesn't work. You could potentially have 3 champions. You could have 2 division champions and then a 3rd tournament champion, and there's only 2 spots. So just 3 doesn't go into 2, or at least not in my math. So no matter how you slice it, there's just some champion that might not get rewarded with a tournament bid, and nothing you can really do about it with this division format. But it'll make for some interesting conversations this spring when we discuss how to divvy up those tournament bids next year.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your picks. When we come back, we'll talk about the men's South Division. We'll be right back with more Inside IUE Sports.
Dylan Newman had a terrible dislocated shoulder after a bad dirt bike accident. The long-term solution, surgery and intense rehab.
I trusted Reed Orthopedics because they had already fixed my ankle. And within 4 months of my surgery, Dr. Miller and my Reed therapist, April, helped me to regain my motion and most of my strength. Thanks to Reed Ortho, I can get back to what I love. It's all about trust. Right, Dr. Miller?
Right here at Reed.
Right here in Richmond.
Welcome back to Inside IUE Sports. We just talked about the Women's Basketball North Division for the Kayak Conference. Now let's begin talking about the Men's South Division. Kyle, what are your picks for the South Division?
All right, we're all a little more educated on the men's. All of us have been around the conference at least 2 times, or going through our second year, so maybe a little more credibility this time around. I went back and looked up last year's picks, actually. Ty and I did this little game last year. So if those of you wondering at home, Ty got 4 of the 9 teams that we picked within 1 spot or better, or exactly of their actual finish. He actually did a better job picking IUE's finish than I did. I got 6 out of 9 within 1 spot of their actual finish or not. I didn't do a very good job with our prediction. So that's, for what it's worth, that's how we did last year. Looking at the South Division, starting my 5th place team is Brescia. They've actually got basically everyone back, and they were the number 3 seed in the conference tournament last year. Just in my opinion, if you took all the KIAC basketball teams and had a track meet instead of a basketball game, Brescia would probably finish last in that track meet. As far as the running speed, jumping, maybe not their strong suit, but they can really play. I mean, if they finish as high as 2nd, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. But I thought they really overachieved last year. That's a compliment, those of you watching in Owensboro. I don't know if that'll be able to happen again for the Bearcats this year. My number 4 pick, Alice Lloyd. Actually, again, they've got a lot of their key pieces back as well, including Tyler Rogers, who has blocked more shots in 1 game than the 3 of us have probably blocked in our lives. With him in the middle, they're also capable of beating anyone on any given night. Historically have a little trouble on the road, although very good at home over the course of a full conference season. I think that'll put them in 4th. Asbury, my third place spot, you can always pencil them in for 20 wins or so, and I think they're good for that again this year. And then my top two, that was a tough one. IU Southeast dominated the league last year, but CCU came in the conference tournament and won the conference tournament final against IU Southeast. CCU basically has everyone back. Southeast basically has no one back. I'm still going to say Southeast first. Basically, they've been the king of the mountaintop in the regular season until proven otherwise. And also IU Southeast, I've been here 7 years. In my opinion, the least talented team that I've seen Southeast have is the one that went to the Final Four for them a couple years back. So you can't always go with what they have on paper. CCU also, the one piece they're missing is their point guard from last year. And I've been making a lot of bad basketball predictions in many years, but the ones I particularly miss, it's when they have everyone back but the point guard. It seems like for teams with high expectations, that's the hardest spot to refill. So I think that's going to be just enough to keep Southeast at the top of that division over CCU.
All right, how about you, Ty?
Again, we know quite a bit about the men's team, traveling around quite a bit. So for my last spot, I put Brescia. Again, I thought they did really well last year. I was really surprised by that, but I just don't think they have all the pieces they really need to really move up in the standings. Alice Lloyd, I put next. They're a good home team when they play in their barn. Not many teams can run in there and win, but I feel like just down the stretch, they can't really keep up with the other teams. CCU, I put as a third. They're very talented, but for some reason, I felt like they just got lucky at the end getting hot, and I just don't feel like they'd be able to get over Asbury and IU Southeast. Asbury at the second, they have well coached. They always have a great group of guys coming in and playing. And IU Southeast at the top, again, no one's ever really touched them when it's come to the regular season, so can't really take them off their throne.
All right, so you guys just had CCU and Alice Lloyd flipped on your predictions. How about you, Franklin?
I've got Brescia at the 5. They've kind of got a little bit of a lopsided attack right now. They've got kind of 4 obvious starters. Actually, 5th to last in the nation in turnover margin, which is really going to hurt them, especially against some of the teams that are going to play in the KIAC. Alice Lloyd, I got them at the 4. They've struggled offensively so far this year. And actually, I should say defensively, I'm sorry. 5th to last in scoring D, gave up 124 to Pikeville, which is also going to prove to be a downfall for them once they get in the conference play too. Asbury, I got them at the 3. They, that's kind of a stretch, not saying that they couldn't possibly win that conference or that division, but they actually defeated 16th ranked Union this past week. So, Asbury, they've got all sorts of good quality guys and, able to surprise people on any given night. Got Southeast at the 2. They've played a tough schedule so far. They are the reigning conference champs. I will say that their only downfall is that they've got 2 guys that average double figures, and they're both over 20 points. You mentioned them playing Indiana Wesleyan, and they took away those guys, and they didn't know what to do. Got Cincinnati Christian at the 1 in that South Division. Started the year 19th in the nation. They're actually going to play 8 ranked teams, so they'll be tested and true by the time they get to conference play. They're going to return 9 guys, including a lone senior, Willie McKinney, who's actually averaging 18 points a game and 8 rebounds. And Cincinnati Christian, as you guys know, has always been pretty long and athletic. So they're my pick to win that division.
Both of them say Southeast and first. You say CCU. What's your main reason for that?
Well, I got a chance to watch them twice. Ended up going to CCU last year. Really liked their style of play. Very long. I know you said that they're missing that point guard, and it is tough to regain your balance when you lose that point guard. But I do believe that they've brought in some guys that I think are going to be able to fill that void, and they're my pick to win that South Division.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the men's North Division. We'll be right back with more Inside IUE Sports. And welcome back to Inside IUE Sports. I'm your host, Caleb Gillock. We just talked about the men's South Division. Kyle and Ty each chose IU Southeast. Franklin chose CCU. Let's go ahead and talk about the men's North Division. Kyle?
All right. Again, same as the division as the women. So you're looking at Carlo, IU Kokomo, Point Park, IU East, and Rio Grande. Again, mostly either Carlo is a brand new program, and Rio Grande is new to the conference this year. My pick for 5th place is Carlo. Again, new program. I have no idea what to expect from them. Interesting story there. It is actually, Carlo was an all-women's school until a very few years ago. They're adding men's sports left and right. They're looking to become a co-ed school. So Carlo has added men's basketball for this year. I glanced at the roster. They're all high schoolers from Pittsburgh, so I know nothing about them. They do have decent size and length, so they're not going to be completely overmatched. It's not like they're running a bunch of guys my size out there. They do have some basketball-sized players they're going to run out there, so probably won't be too bad for a 5th-place team and for a first-year program. IU Kokomo is my pick for 4th. They just haven't really had a breakthrough season yet. I think they have some pieces. They missed the conference tournament last year, but they beat a lot of teams that were ahead of them in the conference, just not quite enough of them. So I'm picking them 4th. They're going to get some good wins along the way. Still looking for a breakthrough year for IU Kokomo. Point Park is my pick for 3rd place. They're going to score. They're going to walk in the gym and put up 90 just by being in the gym, just with the way they play. They're also probably going to give up 90 the way they play as well. Over the course of the season, I think the way they go about doing things, I don't think they can hold up as far as contending for a division title. But there's going to be nights where when the shots are falling for them, they're going to beat some teams that maybe they aren't expected to beat. When they put up 120 instead of 90, they're going to run some people out of the gym. They almost beat Southeast in the opening round of the conference tournament last year because, like I said, they're going to score 90 against anyone. Over the course of the season, though, I think they'll give up enough points that they'll finish 3rd in the division. And then I think it's a 2-team race. Our Red Wolves, IU East, and Rio Grande for the top spot. The coaches, I think, is by 1 rating point picked Rio Grande, and for now I'm going to agree. I haven't actually seen Rio Grande play. They, again, are transitioning from NAIA Division 1, so going from that 11 scholarship limit to 6. Obviously, they've had to reduce that, but they're still used to having a certain amount of resources. IU East, loved everything I've seen from the Red Wolves early on, just a definite bounce-back season after last year. Basically, the 2 games between IU East and Rio Grande are going to decide the division. The first one, IU East gets at home on January 10th. You hate to say a game in January is a must-win, but it's probably a must-win. The Red Wolves need to get that win at home to get off on the right foot to have a bit of an edge on Rio Grande going for that division title.
All right, how about you, Ty?
To start off, Carlo, I put them at the bottom slot. They're a new program, don't really know much about that. I also feel like they might switch places with St. Louis since they just left the conference and it would be the bottom spot there. IU Kokomo I put next. I just feel like they took a big loss when they lost their big man down low. He gave people fits. Everyone did against IU Southeast, against Asbury. Everyone. Their big guy was a big contributor. Point Park I put as 3rd. As Kyle said, once they step in the gym, they're in range. They shoot like crazy. They're not afraid to take shots. They remind me a lot of the Flint Tropics. They'll make a basket and they'll be celebrating by the time they get down to half court and they give up a layup, so they got to take the ball out. Rio Grande, apologies. I put them at 2nd. Don't really know much about them. I think they're big. I try to look up at the roster stuff. They're a big team, but I don't really know too much about them. And I went ahead and put us at 1st. We got a lot of new pieces. I feel like everyone that's coming back is really contributing a lot. And I nailed IU East last year in our spots, so I'm going to put us at 1 this year.
All right, how about you, Franklin?
Well, like these guys, I've got Carlo at the 5 spot. First-year program, they've actually got 10 freshmen on this squad, so I've got them at the 5. IU Kokomo, you mentioned them losing their big guy last year. They're very undersized, rely on the 3, shoot 47% from the outside so far this year, which is 3rd nationally. Very young, 10 underclassmen, only 3 seniors. And, I talked about their size, going to be difficult for them to match up against a lot of teams, especially in this conference. Point Park, as you guys have both said, I mean, they're going to shoot it, and they're going to shoot it often. Right now, they're averaging, where am I at here, 106 points a game, and in their only loss actually scored 76. So if they get a little bit of defense on them, or teams figure out their style of play, it's gonna be interesting. Rio Grande got them at the 2. First year in the KIAC, dropped to Division 2 from a very good Mid-South that sent 4 teams to the national tournament last year. very long, lots of length. I will say 7 underclassmen though for Rio Grande, so on their 11-man roster, so they're going to have some gaps to fill. IU East got them at the 1, maybe a little bit of biasness, but really like you guys have said, what I see from them this year. Completely different style of play from last year. Big, physical. We go 6'9", 6'9", 6'8", 6'7", 6'6", 6'6", and right now we're 8th nationally in total rebounding, and Huey is 2nd in total rebounds. And last year that was not a factor for us. So definitely a very change in styles from last year. So yeah, IU East is my number 1.
All right, there you have it, the Men's North Division. Thank you guys for joining me once again today.
Sure.
We'll be right back with more Inside IUE Sports.
I'm Dr. Ganesh Ramachandran, the region's only hand specialist at Reed Orthopedic Center. Patients love how easy it is having everything under one roof and how easy it is to get here. Right here at Reed Orthopedic Center, right here in Richmond.
And welcome back to Inside IUE Sports. That sound you just heard means that it is time for Wolf Center. Wolf Center is where we take a look back at last week's IU East results and ahead to next week's schedule. You can download the Wolf House sound that you just heard for free on your iPhone or Android device by going to the iTunes App Store or the Google Play Store. Now let's take a look at next week's schedule. On November 29th, the men's basketball team will be at home against Bellarmine. That's going to be at the USI tournament, and there will be an exhibition game for IU East. Tip-off will be at 6:15 p.m. On December the 2nd, the women's basketball team will be at Holy Cross, 7 p.m. tip-off time in South Bend, Indiana. Coverage at IUERedWolves.com. And on December the 6th, the women's basketball team will be at home against Carlo. This is the kayak opener for the season for the Lady Red Wolves. That game will start at noon, and coverage will be on IUERedWolves.com and WETV. And also on the 6th, the men's basketball team at home as well against Carlo. That game starts at 2 p.m. It will be the first men's season for Carlo, and that game will be at Richmond High School as well, and coverage at IUERedWolves.com and on WETV. That concludes this week's episode of Inside IUE Sports. I'm your host, Caleb Gillock. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.